Now, obviously, this changes if you have a midweek game, right? So if you've got a midweek
Correct.
game,
A midweek game, I wouldn't do this. That
Okay.
will destroy players.
So what happens with a midweek game? Because now you're talking about if you've got 2 games on a week as opposed to just 1 game on a week, do you get rid of this session completely that week?
Yes.
Okay.
So again, let's say Wednesday game, right? Again, -1 for me is a confidence build. So Tuesday is typically confidence build if you have a game on Wednesday. And then Monday we do crosses or region, right? So
yeah. So this is still Tuesday right here. So now you're
yes. So now
it's just a lot of
exercise,
reps.
but yes. But again, lots of for me, catching the ball is important. Yes, in a game you gotta make a decision, but if you don't know what ball you can catch, it's difficult for them to understand. All right, what can I actually catch? So for me, I want, especially training, I want them to catch it.
Yeah, and that's something that Saskia is obviously huge on, and yes, you're not going to catch everything in the game, but you need to develop those skills so that you're doing the best job you can to handle the shots that you can handle.
Right. And then if you don't bring 2 hands, like if you just only bring 1 hand, there's only 1 option. But if you bring 2 hands, you have automatically 2 options, parry or catch, right? So now you're gonna make a decision. So
absolutely. All right, let's move to Wednesday here. So now Wednesday, so you've got a game on Saturday, I'm guessing.
Sunday.
So you have
Sorry.
Sunday.
Yeah, Sunday.
Okay.
Is it Sunday? Sorry, okay. Saturday. Sorry.
So I'm guessing Tuesday, they're exhausted from Tuesday. Like Tuesday, physically, their body's beat up. So now what happens with Wednesday?
Wednesday, it's, times what I'm working is I don't really get -5 days build. But when I get 5 build, I use this time as I call it free topic day. So times just the angle shots times 1v1. So this day I used as 1v1 scenarios. So start from breaking every single thing down before we get to the goal exercise.
I love what you just said right there, because you're in a position now where you have that. I don't want to say like it's an extra. It's a free day, Saskia, but it's kind of like it's a day where you can explore, and there's no consequences for that day yet, because you still have a couple days to recover. They're not going to be in their head about a topic because there's still a couple days. Any thoughts on that?
Well, I think that if this is I think it's a good progression period up into a weekend game. You want to touch on everything during the week, and there will be a time when you touch on if you're starting to notice repetitive deficiencies during games, you'll touch on that during the week too. But if there's a flow to the week and you kind of touch on every single aspect you need to as a goalkeeper, well-rounded, then they're going to go into the game on Saturday or on Sunday feeling confident.
Yeah.
Like we always had, I knew, like playing for New York, I knew everything. Like we always had a regiment. Like I knew coming in, I knew certain days, I knew what we would work on. And I knew there were certain days that we'd touch on, like, other things.
Yeah. And then times like I don't have 5 days build time. A lot of times we do 4 days build. So, sometimes we don't really do 1v1, but when I get that, those 5 days build, I use the time to do sometimes, things that sometimes we only get to work sometimes.
Yeah, I want to talk about this. First off, by the way, phenomenal discipline by your goalkeepers here on the 1v1s here. I mean, they're not falling on the ground. They're not spreading on their butt. They're nice and tight and holding position and forcing the players into different positions where they're uncomfortable. Like it's just really, really textbook Yuta. So kudos to your goalkeepers on these actions right here. But I want to touch on just kind of the simple fact that what about previewing what you're going to be doing the next day? Is this a long conversation with your goalkeepers, especially at your level? The next day, being like, "Hey, this is what the goal of tomorrow is. This is what we're going to be doing," or is it more like when they show up that day, you kind of present it to them?
Well, I think that's when I said it. foundation doesn't really change, even if it's a preseason or in season. So the players that understand then this day is actually work day. This day is a cross day, which is -2 a lot of times, -1 confidence build. So again, I don't do the exact same training every time, but they understand, all right, this day they can actually like think about, oh, this is -1. So confidence build phase. So yes, of course, I have to talk to them before the training, but they understand actually what we're trying to get out of the day.
Moving on to Thursday here. So you got a game on Saturday. So this is your last real training day, right? Before you kind of do the confidence build. Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay. So now it looks like this is a crossing day. So again, is this another topic day, or is there a specific reason for why you're doing crosses today?
Well, again, like I have to cover everything, right? Like throughout week, Monday was a re-entry. So basically lots of footwork and handlings and, building a foundation. And Tuesday, the power day. Wednesday, if we have a Wednesday, we did 1v1. So last 2 days, what do we have? What do we need to cover? All right, one day needs to be crosses because I can't get rid of the confidence build. So Thursday automatically for me is a cross. So after this day, you actually covered everything you need to cover for the game.
Oh, I love that. So then Friday, now you can just do confidence build. Thoughts on that?
No, I did similar. My Friday was definitely like a confidence build. Like it would be whether it was just in the goalkeeper group, like a competitive goal, like some sort of like intense but fun goalkeeper game. I wouldn't say keeper wars, but something like just to build that intensity, that confidence, that focus, everything. Yeah. Absolutely. Because you can't, like, you want to switch it on as well. Right. Like, I think that the day before, like if it's because a lot of times for the team, the day before is like walkthroughs. So it'll be like corner kicks, restarts, it might be like a light session, like stuff like that. And I just feel that goalkeepers, for me, I think that it should be like, you got to snap them in, like
100%.
Yeah. I think it should be different.
So I'm looking at the load here for Friday, and everything's like right in the bubble right here. They look really comfortable and smooth and relaxed.
What I do is basically 4 yards goal. So especially for me, if you can cover 4 yards, right? Basically, you can cover a lot of space in the goal. Yes, the goal is 8 yards wide, but if you're in the right spot, if you think about 4 yards, even this angle shot, right?
Totally
4
agree
yards.
with you.
And then even the first phase, 4 yards, half and a half. So again, I want them to think about just focus on saving the 4 yards. If you do that, you can actually increase your saving percentage, right?
I absolutely totally agree with you, and I do the same thing. And especially if you're, you emphasize the proper positioning and footwork, if you can cover the majority.
Hey, Connor, can you hear me, man?
Yep, loud and clear.
Awesome. I love it. All right, we'll get started in 1 minute right here. Dude, you look so crisp and clean. Your image. Like you're using 4K or something.
No, I think it's a joy of using MacBooks, Michael. I think they do suck you in, and the camera is good on them. So how are you keeping? You okay?
Yeah. I'm a little frantic. I've just been meeting with different kids and parents and coaches and onboarding mentors, and it's been a whirlwind, but it's been fun. And last night I had my Halloween show at my comedy show, and that was fun. So
nice, good.
Yeah.
Good.
It's funny, man, because like I put all this time and effort into putting together like all like the decorations for the show, and like the whole thing with like the caution tape and the knives and the blood and the masks and everything like that. And nobody noticed. People were like I'm like, do you think this is just what the show looks like? Do you think it's just always there's always murder caution tape everywhere? That would be weird.
Small details.
All right.
Small details.
Yeah. All right, here we go. Hold on one second. And
Okay.
welcome to Inside the 18. I'm Michael Magid, live from Hollywood, California. With me, no 99 World Cup winner Saskia Weber, because she's getting ready for the parents goalkeeping town hall tonight on the Union goalkeeping app. But we got somebody that can fill in her shoes pretty darn well. We have the one and only, making his triumphant return to Inside the 18, the one and only Conor Brennan of Rangers Football Club and Northern Ireland. Conor, what's up, man? How are you?
All good, Michael. Brilliant. I'm certainly not a World Cup winner, but I'll try my best to fill big boots anyway. So I'm keeping okay. I'm keeping good. I'm looking forward to this.
Well, I mean, dude, first off, before we kind of get into the whole episode today, and we're going to be talking about, prepping for tournaments and showcases and all those different things. You've had a lot going on, man, in the last year. First off, obviously all the different badges that you've been getting. It's like, at what point are you going to start teaching all these badges? Because it seems like every course now.
No, certainly. I think in the last year, Michael made the decision to come away from playing football completely. So I've managed to sort of hang up the boots and gloves from a playing perspective. But it's sort of made me more hungry to become a better coach and give me more time to sort of develop myself as a person and sort of dive into goalkeeping even more. So it has been a change. It's been a transition for me. When I look at my schedule now and I look at what I do, I generally don't know how I've balanced both for such a long period of time. When I look at the demands now, especially of the goalkeeping coach, so that's happened, and I've also obviously, I think that was spoke about previously, that I've took on an adult role, as well as working with Rangers. I'm now working with Northern Ireland under 19, so that's something exciting going forward as well. And yeah, just trying to do as much as I can, and speak to as much people as I can. And I think you're on the same boat whenever we talk about that. Yeah, you can never really stop learning and speaking to people and visiting clubs and going on courses. I think it's really, really important, and I can't emphasize much how valuable it's been to me in the last sort of 12 months.
And I think, one of the really, really cool things about that, Conor, is that not only are you in one environment, but you're in multiple environments. And I encourage a lot of young goalkeeper coaches, not saying you're a young goalkeeper coach, because you're a veteran, grizzled goalkeeper coach by now, but I encourage a lot of young goalkeeper coaches to work in different environments at the same time, so it doesn't become stagnated or becomes very cultish. You want to make sure that you're getting outside perspectives. Do you agree?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think you need to challenge yourself. I think sometimes if you spend too long in one environment, if you want to call it, you can become comfortable. It's probably the word that you can use, and getting out there and seeing how people do things. I don't believe that there's one correct way of doing something, and this is it. There's an old saying, if it's not broke, don't fix it. But it's important that you do add traits to what you can bring in your values as a coach, and going out there and challenge yourself and meeting new people and trying out new things, especially for people who are working in an academy environment or working with kids. The amount of times I enjoy trying stuff. Sometimes it fails, sometimes it works, and that way I know how I can adapt or change that going forward. At first team level, I think it's a wee bit different. I don't think you can get away with trying as much. But certainly in an academy environment, and certainly working with kids, and certainly working in schools or environments, definitely go and try things. Don't be scared to try new things.
It's interesting that you said that right there. And then obviously, I think the cat's out of the bag. I think a lot of people know this already, but you're going to be one of the new pro mentors on the Union goalkeeping app. And I've been doing a lot of sessions in the last week. And shout out to all the different people, the young coaches, the players, the parents that I've met with during office hours. A lot of them bringing different perspectives, because I'm dealing with youth players that I never would have gotten a hold of, if it weren't for this, this program, and parents, that their kids have come up in a very different environment, and young coaches who've had different experiences than myself. And I think, that's one of the really cool things about goalkeeping, is that it's a small enough community that we're able to connect with so many different types of people. Whereas with the outfield world, there's I mean, God, I mean, there's what thousands and thousands of outfield players just in your region alone.
Yeah, no, definitely, Michael. And I do believe that the goalkeeping is a sport within a sport, if you want to call it. And there is something about us that almost goes and we do stick together quite a lot, and that different cultures and coming together, male, female, regardless of what it is. I feel as if even though we're such a small group, we are such a big union when it comes to sticking together and going out our way to make people feel comfortable. And I think that's highly important. And parents have a massive influence in that. Especially with the kids and that as well, and hopefully the way things are going with the app and things that are up and coming, that we can see this continue to grow and grow.
I think, one of the things that about you is that obviously you were playing at a very competitive level at the same time as you were coaching. And that's obviously very difficult to do for a lot of people. Do you think it gave you a different perspective, in your coaching journey than people who just gave up playing years ago and then went into coaching?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things in there for me. One of them being it allowed me to become a better goalkeeper because I was able to implement stuff in my own game that I was seeing on my coaching journey through other people and through myself. That helped me, and I felt that helped the team that I was playing with. Also, one of the other things as well is I proved to myself that I was still good enough and still able to do two things at the one time at such a high level, and that was something that was massive for me. That I finished playing my career, and I'm not going to say a good standard, but I managed to play in the SPFL, every single league from the Premier League right down to League Two and the Lowland League. So for me, that's something I was proud of, and be able to do it while coach full time is something that I'm happy about. And also to guide and help the young players, Michael, that I was coaching. So I think I spoke to you before about an example that I was actually playing against some of the goalkeepers that I was coaching because they managed to go on loan to the same league that I was playing in. And it's funny and it's good, but I found that quite a proud moment while I'm working with them during the week and I'm seeing them about the building. And, it creates a culture and it creates a competitiveness as well because they want to be better than me and I want to be better than them. So I found that highly beneficial.
And I think the really cool thing about that too, and I remember we did discuss this, is the simple fact is that they show that you're not just preaching concept, you're actually putting it into practice. And I think there's something really valuable with that. And that's why I encourage a lot of young goalkeepers out there to, and obviously, I don't want to just discuss, the mentor program for the union, but to connect with players as well too, and not just coaches, because there might be a little bit of an empathy there that they might not get from a coach. So if you have a local college player in your neighborhood or a local pro or anything like that, and you can develop a relationship, I think that's going to be incredibly massive. Do you have any examples of that by any chance over in Scotland?
I think one of the things, Michael, that I found is that I felt as if people reached out to you. So something that I felt as if because I played the game at a good level, I felt as if they were able to trust you because what you were saying, they took it gospel because you've been there and done it to a certain extent. So I felt as if the advice and the feedback that you were giving them, regardless of the situation, they really took it on board and they really listened to it. That's probably one example. Another example is that based on my past experience, if somebody else is going through that same scenario, that you can give them advice. And sometimes, Michael, it might be a case of, by the way, this is what I done in your situation, but it didn't work out for me. So have a think about A, B, and C. And sometimes their moments, I think can really help young kids coming through as well.
I love what you just said about that, because I think a lot of times as goalkeeper coaches, a lot of times, especially as a young coach, you kind of bring up, your past with rose-colored glasses to the players, and you go, oh, and I did this and blah, blah, blah. And as opposed to kind of focusing on like those actions that weren't successful and why they weren't successful, or those decisions that you made that weren't successful. And I think a lot of young players can grow from that if coaches are secure enough in themselves to understand that this is a learning environment for everybody and that we're there for them to learn. And they're going to learn more from learning about our mistakes than they are from our accolades.
Yep. No, I definitely agree with that, Michael. And it's one of the things that I've spoke to goalkeepers about in the past is that if you think about a circle of people around you, you're in the middle of that. So you might have your coach, you might have your agent, your mum, your dad, somebody's opinion that you really value. So you've got 5 or 6 different people in that support network around you. And at the end of the day, we can all advise them based on our own experiences. If you're talking about kids that are 18, 19, 20, they're moving into that adulthood, if you want to call it, and sometimes they need to make their own decisions. But what we can do is advise them, and it's a case of absorbing them 6, 7 different opinions from different people, and them going, right, bang, this is the decision I'm making based on that. So as long as you can guide and help them on that, I think it's key.
I think, one of the things that you brought up right there in regards to like when 17, 18 and you're starting to make your own decisions and everything is like, I've started recognizing, through my coaching journey that sometimes I just have to let them make the mistakes, and because they're never going to learn unless they make the mistakes. And so do you feel that there's a lot of coaches out there that micromanage, not just on the technical and tactical, but also on like the actual journey of like going on loan or signing with this team, and we say, no, you're not supposed to do this, and blah blah blah. And if you go back to when you were 18 or 19, you would have made the exact same decision they did, and they just have to go through that experience before they're willing to kind of listen. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, 100%. I agree with that, Michael. And certainly at that age and stage when they are big enough and old enough to make their own decisions, I think sometimes them making the wrong decisions can sometimes benefit them later on down the line. If I sort of narrow that really, really down to basically the scope, would be along the lines of, I've put a session on to set the goalkeeper up the field. And sometimes that's not a bad thing, because I'm looking at how he's reacting. I'm looking at how he is emotionally in the goal, and I know for a fact he's not going to make many saves within this session, but I want to see how he handles it. So sometimes setting somebody up the field within a session has a benefit later on down the line. So it's definitely something that people can play about with.
And I think, one of the things is that, obviously you've worked with different age groups and everything, but like a lot of the times we think that at the older age groups that they should already be past making these mistakes type of a thing. And we go, oh, at 7, 8, 9, let them explore. And then at 17, 18, and 19, you're grilling them and grilling them and grilling them. I've started realizing that if I start grilling a 17 and 18 and 19-year-old, I'm not really preparing them to be those autonomous goalkeepers at the professional level. And as you playing yourself too, that you make a couple decisions that you're iffy about, you waffle, and next thing you know, the goal's in the back of the net. You're better off being decisive and being quote unquote wrong in the action than being indecisive and being caught between two worlds.
Yeah, no, I agree with that as well, Michael. And one of the things that I think back to my playing career, and I remember working with a goalkeeping coach at the time, and what he did say to me at the age of 16, 17, I was probably about 15, 16 at the time, was if you are going to make a mistake, make sure it's a positive one. And he made me think about, well, what is a positive mistake? So an example that he would give for me is, well, if you're coming for it, if a cross is put in the box and it's a decision to come, I don't mind you coming. If your technique's wrong and it leads to goal, that's fine. At least you've made a mistake. At least you've made a positive mistake by coming anyway. So if you are going to make a mistake, make sure it's a positive one. But from a coaching perspective, I believe if you create the environment that allows mistakes to happen by challenging people, I think over a long period of time, I think you'll see kids continue to grow and develop within that. But from a coaching perspective, if you don't create that environment and they're nervous and anxious and they're worried about what the coach is going to say to them after a mistake, for me, that's wrong. So if you create that environment, I think that has a lot to do with it.
So let's get into that topic, because this is a really good segue into today's topic, and that is preparing for tournaments and showcases. When we talk about mistakes, Conor, the stakes are higher in a short form tournament or showcase than they are in your regular season environment. So maybe for some parents out there who are listening who don't know what we mean by the differences between the two, why don't you kind of in a nutshell explain the differences?
Sorry, Michael, you just cut out there. Could you just explain that? Sorry, one more time. I just lost a
Yeah.
second.
No worries. So maybe for some parents out there who are listening, who might not be familiar with what we refer to by a short form tournament or showcase versus your regular season, club environment, what are kind of some of the key differences that they need to hear about?
Yeah, I think one of them, Michael, would be with tournament football. I think you're going into the unknown to an extent. So for me, within your season, if it's pre-season over a series of time, there's almost a physical demand on basically what you're doing at your club, for you to develop and progress. For me, tournament football, really going into the unknown football, it could be a game every day. So how do you manage and handle a game every day? It could be a 4 day training camp and then a game to finish at the end, and almost how you tweak that, how do you develop that based on this instance. For me, I know what we're talking about here is international football v club football, and for me that's different over a period of time. For me, I'm going to work with goalkeepers now on this camp that maybe I haven't seen for probably the guts of 2 months. So for me, then what have I seen in September that I'm now going to see in November? So I'm going 8 weeks without actually seeing them active. So there's a couple of differences in there compared to sort of club football, Michael. Just on your screen there, what you're talking about really is basically how I detail it in terms of what I do before, during, and after a camp. So this is an example of what we're doing with the camp that we're meeting up with in November, which is in 2 weeks' time. So before it, I'm obviously looking at monitoring game time. So the goalkeepers who are going to be involved within this, and their squad selection, and almost an opposition report, who we're going to play and what detail do I have on them. So this is the stuff I'm probably doing now. And then in 2 weeks' time, when I'm almost in the camp and we're living it and breathing, and it's almost managing the group, v managing the individual. And one of the things that might be is you might have a goalkeeper who you know is going to play. You might have a goalkeeper who isn't going to play. You might have another goalkeeper who is almost there for training. So how are you managing that, and how are you preparing the goalkeepers based on that as a group and as an individual? Is one of the things, Michael. So
I got a question about that, Connor. So when you are, as a coach, when you are preparing for a tournament, do you make that decision prior to training day one in regards to the selection of who's going to be the number one, or do you wait for the camp environment to determine who's going to be the number one?
I think it's a combination of both, Michael. We've all had discussion as staff on the selection process of who we think should be in the squad. We have an idea of the plan, but that then goes back to, if you look at that middle bubble there, Michael, it says adaptation, which is massive in football. So something might be sprung on us in the camp that we might need to change, whether that's injury or something might happen. But we do have an idea of how we want to go about things. But that's not to say that plan is going to work after the 10 days. We might need to change or adapt something within that. So I have an idea in my head, but that is not set in stone, because based on experience, the idea that I've had in my head at a different tournament or previously, I've had to change there and then. So I think that comes with experience and comes with having that bit previously.
I just think, like when we're talking about that, and obviously now we're looking at schedules and everything like that, I think that a lot of times also it becomes to the profile of the goalkeeper in regards to the age level that you're talking about. If you're talking about a 17-year-old boy versus a 23-year-old man, it might be a different conversation and how you go about that. Also, like the variables that come into play with younger players that don't come in with older players, you've got a little bit more of an understanding of how they deal with these environments because you've seen them before. I mean, obviously, their fitness level coming in, I'm assuming, is something that comes into play too. Like you might, have an idea that a player is going to be, your selection. They come into camp and they're not as fit and ready, and tournaments are, again, short form sprints basically.
Yeah, no, of course, I agree with that, Michael. And also based on when you talk about sort of the valuables coming into play, even as a player, for me, the environment is something that I spoke about previously. But based on this example that we're looking at, we went to Italy, so it's almost embracing the culture as well. So you're now taking them out in an environment that they're comfortable in, the club, to now training in a different environment with a different coach. And that time was our first time together as a staff, so it was almost a new beginning for players and staff. So it's almost getting to know and understand each other as well, understand what each other are good at, and how we can drive and push each other as a group. One of the things as well, Michael, about tournament football for me is almost filling your time wisely, especially in international football. There can be a lot of spare time. especially towards the end of camps, and when the training is done, and what we're doing at night. And sometimes being part of being an elite professional is knowing and learning how to recover when you do have downtime. Especially in different countries when you're not used to eating the food and you're not used to basically being out your club environment. So it's almost about adapting and being able to see that. And from a coaching perspective, for me, it's seeing who's willing to do that, and seeing who is struggling, and knowing who's doing that, and how you can help them and guide them with that.
See, I love what you just said right there, because those are the variables that a lot of the times, young coaches don't think about, or young players don't even think about, like, oh, I'm going to be jet lagged because I'm in a completely different time zone that I'm used to. I had to bring my books with me, and I've got to find a way to manage my manage my schoolwork at the same time as being in this tournament. I may be in a country where I don't speak the language, and because of that, I can't just go off on my own to go grab a snack in the middle of the night, because it's going to be a little bit more challenging. These are all really good points that you brought in, and it actually makes me think about how many goalkeepers actually can be more successful in an environment that's the unknown, because they don't get in their head, because everything's brand new.
Yeah. Now, of course, for me, Michael, an example of that is the World Cup. I know we're talking about the top level, but for me, an example of that is the World Cup, in terms of you've been away in a hotel with the same people for a month. You've not seen your wife, you've not seen your kids. You're on the other side of the world, and how are you managing that, especially if you go all the way to the final? And there comes a point where it can be quite daunting. It can be a tough experience, and filling that time, like I said, sometimes can be hard. So yeah, just on your screen there, Michael, it's almost a training detail that basically how I worked throughout that trip. I was lucky enough that we had a 3-day lead-in before the game in Italy, so that was basically my time to have a look at what was selected, to have a look at what we've done. And for me, it was a really, really positive trip. But for me, international football, Michael, is a lot of tactical stuff, a lot of team-based stuff. And there wasn't a lot of time for work, if you want to call it. And the lads would definitely have worked harder at the club than they did when they came away. But for me, it's important that we prepare them for that game on the Thursday against Italy, and what we do in the lead up to that.
Yeah, and I think when we're talking about this here, as we kind of move through here. I mean, this is, by the way, this is all very specific and everything like that. Do the players get all of this, or is this more just for the coaches?
Yeah, well, this is sort of my planning too, Michael. So I've created this and done all this myself. But at the end of the trip, the players will get feedback. I do send feedback off to the clubs. So I've built a relationship with the goalkeeping coaches at the club. And this gets sent to them on what the goalkeeper's done. And basically as well, so when he does go back, that know exactly what days he's trained, how many sessions he's done, and exactly what he's done, and a report on feedback on what I've seen and what I've identified. It's up to then the club if they want to hand that over to the player and sit down with them. But basically after the last game, I would normally have a debrief with the goalkeepers anyway, and talk through how they are. And it's important that you keep that relationship if we're going to work together over the next period of time. So yeah.
So let's get into the match reports here that you share with them, because I think one of the really great things about short form tournaments when players go on international duty, or or showcasing with different coaches that they don't work with regular in their club environment, is that you're unbiased. Because you don't live and eat, sleep, and with these people every day in and day out. So you're kind of coming in with a fresh eyes. So these match reports that you're giving are extremely honest from your standpoint, without any bias of with your club players. You're like, well, yeah, shot stopping wasn't here, but I also know that blah 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 was dealing with blah blah blah. So this is more just purely on the technical and tactical, right?
Yeah, well, this is just an example, Mike. Obviously, I've took the game out, and I've took various things out just because I didn't want to put that in. But this is based on basically what I've seen within the game. Every time a goalkeeper touches a ball, will fall into one of them 4 categories, and that's what I work on when it comes to analysis and debriefing reports. So shot stopping, dealing across the distribution, defending the space, and that is basically broken down into sort of 4 corners. and that is individually and collectively as a team, and his role within that, sort of in possession and out of possession. So, I'll sit down with them and I'll speak to them through that. One of the challenges that I'm going to have in November is we've got 3 games in 10 days. So for me, the most important game in international football is probably the next one, especially if you talk about tournament football. So I probably won't spend as much time on these things as I did in Italy when we only had 1 game in September. So it's getting the balance. So whenever we play, say we play on the Friday, I think the next game is on the Monday. So for me, the Saturday is really the only time where you can sort of basically get time to develop and look at that. And then the Saturday, you're back into your match day -1, and then the game's on the Monday. So there isn't a lot of time. So it's just managing that and not overloading them with information. I think it's important that you get your balance as well.
Yeah, and I think I love what you just said about not overloading them with information, because I think a lot of times with a lot of young coaches, when they first get in a camp environment, a tournament environment, they try to give too much to the goalkeepers when it's a short amount of time that they're going to be with them, and all it does is just get them in their heads and confused. So do you have to kind of like, how do you pick and choose like what information is relevant and what's not relevant for the environment?
For me, Michael, sometimes less is more. And it's picking your times of when to give that information. If it's something that needs fixed there and then, and it's an action that it needs to be quick and sharp, it might be something where I need to give them a bit of detail on the pitch because it's really important. I really like using my breaks at half time to give them bits and pieces, drip feeding them stuff. But after the game is probably the time where you almost get to sit down and that becomes a 15-20 minute chat. And I would always get their thoughts first, and it becomes almost a two-way thing. For me, it's important that it's not about me going, you need to do this or you need to do that. I need two-way. And I think it helps them develop and open up more and build a relationship for me, which is key when I'm working with my goalkeepers. So that's sort of how I would work. If you climb up the levels, sometimes when you play in stadiums and there's thousands and thousands of people, they don't hear the detail on the pitch. So that is why your training days are so important, because when it comes to playing in front of 50,000 people, he's not going to hear me shouting instruction on the pitch. So that's why your training detail needs to be spot on, and your information before, during, as in half time and after game needs to be key, because you don't get the time within the game.
Yeah, I never even thought about that. That's a great thing to say in regards to like every environment's going to be different that you're playing in. And if you're in an environment where you're not going to be listening, like you need to prepare for that. If you're playing in high altitude, you need to prepare for that. You need to prepare for these different things that sometimes we don't even think about. I'm sure there's certain environments, Conor, in Scotland where the fans behind the goal, that's a variable. That's a variable.
Yeah.
And if you're talking about bringing in an academy kid into the first team, and playing for the first time in that's probably something they're not used to. They're used to playing in front of, mom and dad and a few friends type of a thing. So that's got to be a thing. I want to talk about this here because, we're talking about these variables that come into play. I've found that sometimes players will play better in a tournament when they're playing with their youth national team, because even though the stakes are high, it's not their peers, as it's not the kids that they're play with day in and day out. So they have a certain amount of freedom to just play without overthinking about what's so-and-so going to think about me if I don't play them the ball. What if I do this? What if I do that? Have you experienced that?
Yeah, I think I know what you mean, Michael. And for me, sometimes kids coming out of that come out their comfort zone, and go into and I think especially in international football or tournaments that you're meeting up with your counties or whatever. Sometimes you're seeing your best mate again that you met in school, and sometimes you're seeing your old teammate that you haven't seen in 2 years by coming into a squad, and I think that bit's important when it brings people together. And there's something about Northern Ireland for me that just gels people together and makes them stick because it's in their nature. And all of a sudden, then somehow that just lifts the whole group. And for me, if I look at my job as a coach, when I'm working with 2-3 goalkeepers on these trips, so again, I've put down the side, but one of my first jobs is to support them first and foremost as a person. And then my next bit is then kind of educate them as a coach, kind of drip feed them just wee bits of detail that if it's one thing within that period that they can go back to the club and almost try and implement into their training. Relationships for me is massive because I need people to enjoy themselves. I need them to have fun and then learn, because we all want to learn and we all want to improve, and that's me as well. That's not just them, Michael. So, that's me as well. And hopefully, if we get them things right and them fundamentals come into place, it creates a culture where people want to be successful and want to help each other out. So that's the reason why that's my why. That's why I do it.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. I wanna throw this up here right here. I want to show some of your footage. So this is from Rangers. This is the academy training, and then we're going to look at Northern Ireland here. Obviously, with Rangers, you've got a lot more time with these players, and this is a session where you're incorporating the field players, which I'm assuming before we kind of get into this in a short form tournament. Incorporating the field players as much as possible is necessary, right? Because you're going right into games.
Yeah, definitely. It's something that we've been toying with, Michael, and playing with, and for me, it shows. I'm not just a goalkeeping coach. That the other coaches see my value of going and taking 4 or 5 players within a session and almost looking at what they can do. An example of this session is that I had 4 goalkeepers and I'm working on cutbacks and crossing. But I've also got 2 wingers and I've got 2 strikers in there who need to work on their movement and need to work on the delivery. So why not bring it together and why not implement it rather than having the goalkeeper serving that I can actually bring it to life? And that was something that we sat down and spoke about, and the feedback's been brilliant from the goalkeepers. It's been brilliant from the players, and the coaches really enjoyed it. So it was something that we're going to try and do more often, depending on the days of the week and where we are from a scheduling point of view. So. Yeah, that's sort of how it sort of developed and grew.
So let's go a little bit into this footage right here after we kind of go into here. So show us. So what is taking place right here? First off, in this picture.
Yeah. So all I'm looking for, Michael, is the goalkeeper to come down the line of the ball to deal with a serve from me on the angle, which is a half volley. When he deals with that, there's almost a second phase, so it's almost a cross. So it's a combination down the side. So I'm looking at the goalkeeper adjusting. I'm looking at the strikers crossing over the middle. And then a great bit of goalkeeping is him turning square. So positionally, he's took a positive first step to almost cut the ball out. So he takes it away from the 2 strikers in the middle. But it's live. For me, it's really important that we train real life, Michael. And this is the game. For me, this is the game. I don't think you can get any more sort of, not random, but, an example would be a lot of goals. Or if you look at a trend now, a lot of stuff is cutbacks from outside the width of the 6. So that was something that I wanted to try. I wanted to create realism, and for me, this was a session design that I've made up and looked at based on footage from goals that we've conceded. So, it was something that I threw together. Just
no, I love it because I love the fact. First off, is that you recognize like this is the game. This is the game. I think a lot of the times, and a lot of the times, Conor, it's not necessarily the coach's fault, because a lot of the times we just don't have the dimensions to do the work that we want to do. So the fact that Rangers gives you that type of freedom to do that is massive. Obviously you're at a big club, facilities is probably not an issue. But a lot of people at smaller clubs, it is an issue. What advice do you give them if they go, yeah, this looks great, but I have, 20 to 30 yards and that's it?
One of the things I would always say, Michael, is I get there's people that maybe work on Astros where there's 3 or 4 teams, but for me, if I've some even putting out cones to mark out the dimensions of the pitch for me. So even if you're working with kids, give them a 6-yard box and give them an 18 and give them a penalty spot because they know where they are in their goal. I think that's key, and you can mark that out even if you're not working in the 18-yard box. That would be one of the things. The other things would be is use as much as you can. So there's days where I've had 2 goalkeepers, but I've actually used my sports scientist for a bounce pass. I've used my physio for basically being around and just in the goalkeeper's eye line. So he doesn't actually need to be able to kick a ball. So can you use a parent to basically pass a ball? Can you use a parent to be able to throw a ball? kind of stand in the middle just so the goalkeeper can't see. So he's having to lean in slightly so there's bodies run the cross. So you're getting some sort of realism. So just these wee bits where I've tweaked and changed and added as I've went. And, you know, is there mannequins available where it might take a wee deflection? Can we use a bounce board even though we don't have the numbers, but it'll create a pass, and that pass might mean the goalkeeper just adjusts slightly 2 yards, which he will in a game. So there is things for me, Michael, that I've used even though I've only had 2 or 3 bodies.
You know, I love what you just said right there, because that's something that, you know, I've done as well too, in regards to the fact, like if I'm in like an environment where I'm training in isolation, you know, with a foundational goalkeeper, you know, I'll pull a parent and they go, "Oh, I'm not a footballer." I said, I actually don't need you to be a footballer. I just need you to do these specific actions for me to simulate that, just to train that muscle memory for them in these situations, especially at the foundational age. I think one of the toughest challenges, Connor, trying to throw it back to tournaments, especially youth tournaments. Well, a lot of the times, like you said, you show up and they're like, "Oh, yeah, we don't have a field for you today, but we have this space behind the hotel that you guys can use to prepare for tomorrow. Sorry about that. The other one's under repair," or something like that, you know? And I've been in that environment before. So like, what do you do in that? Because you're like, well, this isn't going to be realistic to what they face tomorrow, but I still need to get the most out of them.
Yeah, I think the incidents are really, really tough, Michael. And one of the things, if you are really, really stuck and it's at the point where you're literally can't train, how can you basically utilize to still prepare the goalkeeper? So can you then spend that extra 20 minutes in the classroom then breaking stuff down and showing them and almost maybe going down that route? Does it become, you take them off the pitch and it becomes a classroom session and you do your minimal on the pitch? So things like that, and almost one of the things that I've done as well, Michael, is bring the group together in units. So, you know, can we sit down as a back four and goalkeeper and understand what each other want and need at certain moments within a game? So I think you use your windows for them. So you're still educating them and still preparing them. Yeah, it's not ideal. You've turned up and the pitch is flooded. You've turned up and you don't have this facility that you want or need, but there's still learning that can take place for me.
You know, you brought up a really good point right there, but in regards to like, because I think one of the things that may be an issue is that if you try to do what you can't do in a limited amount of space or in an environment that's not going to be realistic to what they're playing in the next day, you actually might be doing more harm than good, right?
Yep. No,
Okay.
that's correct. I agree with that.
Okay. Okay. So like, now that kind of gets me back to like tournaments. Are they more mental than physical in your opinion?
For me, yes, because I believe that you've done your work on the build up to it. So for me, your physical demand and your fitness and your preparation is all done prior to the tournament. So for me, you should really go into that tournament feeling good, feeling fresh. And if you've done your job as a coach, if you've done your job, then really, for me, your learning takes place in the moment within the tournament. You don't really need to coach or educate your kid on the day. It's something that they should strive on. The more you progress through tournaments, I think it becomes mental, especially if you talk about day 8, 9, and 10, and you're getting to that quarterfinal, semi-final, final. Sometimes pressure gets to you, especially as kids. So again, there's an uncomfortable scenario for you to be thrown in. How do you deal with that pressure of getting to the final? One, you've done all the work to get there, and it's maintaining your standard. But for me, Michael, I've always flipped it, and I've always said to myself, for now, I'm just gathering momentum. So I've played the 3 or 4 group games. I've played the quarterfinal. We've now got a chance to get in the final, but I'm just starting to feel good now because I've played 4 or 5 games. I know my distance. I know my position. I'm in my routine, and I'm gathering momentum. So for me, that's massive.
Yeah, you know, and I think one of the things I'm just thinking about in regards to like with tournaments and the mental aspect type of a thing is that when we're talking about youth players, especially adolescents, in my opinion, like, you know, like start talking about like 12, 13, 14, 15 type of a thing. You know, a lot of the players, they're so concerned about what other people are going to think. And, you know, as a goalkeeper in a tournament environment, like one mistake or one bad decision could lead to you exiting the tournament. And now the parents, oh, well, our goalkeeper, or, the players, man, I had 2 assists and so couldn't keep it out of the net, or type of thing. Like, what advice do you give to young goalkeepers who feel this immediate pressure, like it's all on them? Like, what do you say to them?
I think one of the things, Michael, is being in that scenario, in that situation, a couple of times helps, because you've now felt it previously. So you're going again almost. So the fact that you then can say, right, I've been here before, I've done this and it worked, or I've done this and it didn't work, so I'm going to change that. So being there previously, I think helps based on your experience. But like I said, if you have that chance to strive and impress, for me, I think you need to be able to feel and be confident whatever action that you take, and own it. Basically, is one of the other things that I would say. And we all know it's not easy being a goalkeeper because it's so individualized. Especially if you let one in that you shouldn't have let in, and it's tough because you might touch the ball again for 10 minutes, but the last time you touched the ball that it was your fault, and that was a goal. And it can't be easy, but you get the success for that 3 months down the line. You see the benefit of that when you become a better person and you don't make that mistake again. You get the success then. You don't get it whenever the mistake happens. And it's really, really tough when you see young kids make their mistakes. It's tough, but they do become a better person for it later on down the line.
And I think one of the things that I want a lot of parents to hear right now, and we're going to be talking about mental health in the parent symposium, later this afternoon on the Union app. For those of you guys who are in the United States, it might be a little difficult for you guys to watch in Europe at 5:30 Pacific time. That might be the middle of the night for you guys, but we'll try to do something for the European audience very soon. Is that the fact of the matter is that mental health is just so massive when it comes to young goalkeepers, and the more and more we can make them feel comfortable to make mistakes, like you're always talking about, Conor, to give them the reps in these types of environments, these tournaments. The more tournaments they can do, the better off they become a bit. And also that parents understand that, yes, these tournaments are high pressure, but they really don't mean anything. These are part of the journey of the goalkeeper. Like, nobody cares whether Northern Ireland won the U17, MLK Cup, like they don't. Like, I mean, you guys do, because you have pride and you're teaching the players to win and to be able to compete in a tournament. But in the long run of the goalkeeper's journey, it's just part of the process, right?
Yeah, no, definitely it is, Michael, and something that it doesn't matter 3 years down the line. Then why worry about it just now? So yeah, I definitely agree with you in that. And like I said, that coming through the other side of that, for me, is more important than going and winning the tournament. I actually like seeing my goalkeepers make mistakes, because I see how they act. I see how they change, and your job as a coach to guide them. But one of the things for the parents, for me, is, as a club or as association, create the environment and create the culture. And for me, that's massive. If you create the environment and have the culture, that goes a long way, and you'll get the benefit of that 12 months down the line when your kid is striving. You really will.
So I got a question for you. At what age do you think it's important for, if you're a young club coach, a team coach, to start entering your teams in tournaments? Would you say, what, 12, 13, or younger?
Yeah, well, I mean, speaking on my own experience, Michael, we would take our under-10s away. We would even, and it's not sort of abroad. It might even just be down to England from Scotland, for an example, to play in a 14 tournament and play against teams that we would deem would be on par with us. So yeah, I think as early and as young as you can. And I think you do see a lot with kids, and you do learn a lot. Some of the things that get thrown at you, I think, even as a parent, that you need to deal with, I think challenges you. Even when you send the kids away, for me, one of them might be that they've never actually been away from home before. So that might throw you, that might catch you. So how do you deal with that if you've got a kid needing his mum or dad when he's in the other side of the world? It can't be easy. But yeah, but nah, definitely, I think as young as 9 and 10, definitely get them out, and you know, they're there because they want to become professional footballers at the end of the day. So they might end up on the other side of the world at one stage, and if you can introduce that as early as you can, you know, you'll see the ones that love it and enjoy it, and you'll see the ones that struggle. But it's how you guide and help them through that.
You know, I love one of the things that you just said right there in regards to even with the under 10s, like even just going somewhere to England. And it's just making me think of like the more and more experience you have playing against competition that's not in your backyard, the better off you're going to be in the future, because you're not going to, it's not going to be as foreign to you, for lack of a better word. And I'm even thinking about like showcase environments. Like obviously here in the United States, university football is massive here in the United States. And a lot of young players here, their goal is to get to university football. And a lot of times they'll go to these college ID showcases and they've only been around goalkeepers in their local area. And they've only been around field players in their local area. And now they're in an environment with players they don't know, a level maybe that's higher than they've ever seen before, or, you know, or just different coaches that are different, and they really, really struggle. So I'm just thinking, like, just by that stretch of the imagination, to have a 9-year-old already comfortable with that, by the time they're 15, it's going to be a very different story, huh?
Yeah, no, of course, and I think going into the unknown, Michael, is important. Like you said about going into your environment where it's a different college or it's a different county, wherever it is. For me, it's important because you can actually see what's ahead of you. So you might actually see a kid at your age. If you think you're the best in your college, you go to a different college and you see a kid the same age as you, and you go, "Wow, he's a lot better than what I am." So sometimes there's a bit of reality in there too, and it might actually just give you that wee edge to go, "Actually, I'm not as good as what I thought I did." And at the age of 13, 14, 15, when the body's starting to change, and that's important for me, that it might actually just give a kid that wee bit of grit and determination to work that wee bit harder where he thought he was maybe one of the best.
Yeah, and, you know, and I'm just thinking, I mean, you're absolutely right about that, because there's a lot of goalkeepers that they're the best in their area. And because of that, they can just kind of skate along based on that. And they get in an environment, they realize that there are people that are at a higher level than them. Then like, they're like, okay, so now I've got to, in order to be able to do what this person's doing, I got to put this type of work in. And it's going to only create a better goalkeeping community, pool wise, like level wise, for people like yourself when you're looking at international selections, because now you got 3 goalkeepers. Maybe one had a really high ceiling, but they never really in an environment that was challenging them. And now, because they've seen these other 2 once they went to camp with you, now all of a sudden they're a higher level goalkeeper. I want to talk about Northern Ireland right here, because this is the next session that you've got right here. Different environment, because that was your Rangers club. This is international. I'm guessing you don't have the access to all the players that you did there and the familiarity with those players. So what's going on right here? Because this looks like it's a little bit more of isolation.
Yeah, so Michael, this is still actually a session at Rangers, but this is one that
Oh, my bad. Okay.
I have done with Northern Ireland. So for me, this is a match day -1. So this is a sort of a match prep session, if you want to call it. And it's just basically, I know you spoke about previously about confidence building, and this is one of the things that I do that's controlled, and the goalkeeper's always basically in control of what happens, and he knows what's going on. So it's just 3 different serves from 3 different positions, really. It's a volley, a strike, and a half volley. And I'm just looking at his speed, getting from A to B, getting in line, getting down the line, and his save selection. And if I'm actually to progress this, this is now almost a wee bit more live and a wee bit more random. So this was based on opposition that a lot of the goals came from outside the box. So again, just replicating the fate of trying to give them an idea of what they're going to face tomorrow. And the reason why the ball's moving is, if you look at the goalkeeper and the goal, he's just making them these small adjustments to get in line and getting in position. And for me, that's key, especially at 17 and 18. So this was based on an opposition that basically scored from distance quite a lot, and around the box, and mannequins in there just to almost create something where it might take a deflection just for reacting. And again, a massive one playing live, Michael. So if the ball comes off, we're still reacting off that ball because that's the game. This one here is just slightly different. So this is based on an opposition that basically got basically cutbacks and scored from 6 yard box. So again, just trying to recreate what they're facing the next day. And again, when I speak about playing live, this save here is incredible. Making a save here and then getting up and getting the next one and going again, because for me that's the game, and you need to give them environments. You need to give them challenges, and if that happens in a game, you're going great save, but it doesn't come by accident. It comes because you train it every single day.
Also, what I love about this right here, as we kind of come back to this here, talking about, and the pressure of a elimination match in a tournament and everything like that, is that, every single action, it could potentially lead to either advancing or being eliminated. So the fact that they chase, and this is obviously, it's not an orthodox save, but they're able to improvise in the moment and not give up and still be able to make a play right there. And that's all that matters, is keeping that ball out of the net in those types of moments.
Yeah, definitely, Michael. And, part and parcel of being a Rangers goalkeeper is making big saves in big moments. There is a time where Rangers do play opposition and the goalkeeper mightn't touch the ball for 20 minutes, but this might be the last minute of a game and he's asked to pull off a world-class save. So for me, that needs to be in the makeup of being a Rangers goalkeeper, for an example, and it's something that we look for when we're developing.
I mean, I love
here.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say similar here, Michael, as well. Just playing live and getting into line, and I'm quite lucky that I do have the facility and I do have the scope to do that. You see drone footage there, you see GoPro footage in front of the goal, behind the goal, and I'm quite lucky and fortunate to have access to that.
I want to say this in regards to like what you were saying with the Rangers, and also when you are preparing your goalkeepers, for different environments, your club situation is going to also be massively important in regards to that. And I wasn't even thinking about that. Like, I'm not trying to be disrespectful to the SPL in any way whatsoever, but Rangers historically has been a team that's been able to play a lot of possession in the SPL. And like you said, it's up to key moments during the season. However, more often than not, they're going to be playing in finals and semifinals of cup competitions, and then in Champions League or Europa League or anything like that type of situation. So you're really trying to find goalkeepers that can handle getting 3 points in the Champions League, as opposed to finding a goalkeeper that can get you 3 points against Dundee. Like, and I'm just using that as an example. I'm nothing derogatory towards Dundee in any way whatsoever, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, definitely, and I think, like I said, there it's big moments and big parts of games, and to be a Rangers goalkeeper, we've got our number one at the minute is an England international, and Jack Butland, who has put in so much time and effort to get to what he is, and for me, that's the stature that we need and what we want, goalkeepers who've played in Europe that have represented the country. Because we've raised the standard and raised the bar over the last 3 or 4 years, and for me, it's key. It's key.
Yeah, I mean, Conor, this has been awesome, man. I mean, this is really, really great. I mean, honestly, like, I love the fact that you're so passionate about this type of stuff, and you're willing to share and everything like that, because I think it's really massively important that we all, like you were talking about, learn from each other, regardless of what level we're at. I had the conversation the other day with a rec coach and said, if you see something, tell me, because, I'm never going to be like, oh, well, I'm coaching at blah, 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 so I know better than you do or whatever. Like, no, you might see something I never saw before. Also, that rec coach one day might become a first team professional coach somewhere. I don't know what that person's journey is going to be. Which kind of gets me to with the whole thing with you doing the mentoring. First off, before we discuss how you can do office hours with you and everything like that, why did you want to get involved in mentorship and in a program like this?
I'm an open book. Michael is one thing I always have been. I like opinions. I like people giving me their opinion, whether it's a goalkeeper or a coach. And you know, I like detail. I like feedback. It's always how I have been as a player, as a person, regardless of what the situation is. And you know, I want to pass on my experience as a player and as a coach to somebody that has maybe been in the situation that I've been in. And if I can just give them one wee nugget that might help them, then for me that's enough. And also I want to experience what other people, where people are at in their journey, and how they got there. Because like you said, building relationships and building a culture where we can all come together, I think is vital.
I think it's massive, man. And in fact, the fact that a young player or a young coach, in Iowa here in the United States can connect with somebody of your ilk, and work together, I think it's only going to make goalkeeping better as a whole. So I'm just going to kind of break down for people who might be watching this for the first time and don't know what we're talking about. There is a platform. It's called the Union Goalkeeping app. You can get it on Google Play stores, Apple stores, all those sorts of wonderful places. What you do if you want to start signing up with mentors, very simple. You go on here when you register. There's two things. There's the Union Basic and Union Premium. Union Basic, that is an engagement forum, kind of like your Twitter or your Facebook page or everything like that. But where the real fun begins is in the Union Premium. That's where you're going to have access to people like Conor Brennan. And it's not going to be webinars or a masterclass type thing where you're just listening to him talk to you. You're actually going to engage with Conor, and you're actually going to be able to do things, take office hours personally with him. So you go into the platform, you see one-on-one coaching, you click one-on-one coaching, and you find Conor Brennan in that schedule right there. So as you can see, he's available Tuesday on November 7th. So anybody who's listening right now wants to get a session with Conor on Tuesday, November 7th, you can do that. You click on Conor's page. You see he's available right there. Boom. You get a little bit of a description of what he's all about, what his office hours are going to be, and what his availability is going to be. His availability is going to be probably more generous towards the European audience. So just bear that in mind, everybody. He's going to try to do what he can, but we're not going to have him up at 3 a.m, unless he really wants to do it. That's totally his choice. Content links are in here, guys, if you want that. Again, it's a very, very simple process. You sign up. It is $4.99 a month. I don't know what that is in euros, apologize, or in pounds. But it's very, very, very cost effective. Or there's a 30-day free trial if you want to try that as well, too. And you'll have access not only just to Conor, but you'll have access to me. No, I'm kidding. You'll have access to me, but you also have access to unbelievable people in MLS, NWSL, SPL, the Champions League, Bundesliga, just really, really cool high-level people. Goalkeeper parents community as well, too. College players that you can work with on a mentorship basis. All sorts of really, really cool things. And that's basically my plug, man. And I'm just humbled and honored that somebody, at your level who's been taking their education so incredibly seriously is willing to give back and get back into a program like this at this early stage. It means a lot to us, honestly, seriously.
Not at all, Michael. No, listen, I'm happy to be on board, and we've built up a relationship over a period of time of a few years. So I'm looking forward to seeing where that goes and let it grow and let it continue and dive right in with both feet, as I say.
Absolutely, guys. And if you want to reach out to Conor on the platform, I believe it's at cbrennan94. Is that what it is?
Yep. Yeah.
That's correct. Yeah. So it's at cbrennan94. Obviously, if you want to reach out to us with a topic idea or a guest suggestion, it's at Goalkeeper Podcast on the Union Goalkeeping app, or contact at inside18media.com on email. But really DM me on the app, because I'm trying to stay as active on there as possible, and I'd really like to meet a lot of you people on the platform and get feedback on what you guys are liking and what you're not liking, because we're trying to grow as well, as we launched last week. Conor, looking forward to this, man. We still got to do our onboarding session. We still got to do our onboarding session.
Yes, we do. We'll get there, Michael. We'll get there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're a little busy. Your parents were in town.
Yeah. No, of course.
Well, that's awesome, guys. Well, that's all the time on Inside the 18, and we are out. Stay on for a second, Conor. Later.
Yeah!